Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hey guys, I am delighted to have with me today Sonal Bahl. I probably just said that wrong. I've listened to your name 1,000 times and I apologize. So you'll have to repeat it correctly. But Sonal is an experienced HR director and career strategist who's lived and worked in India, Uruguay, Chile, France, and now in Belgium. So all over the world. Her career spans 2 decades in HR and coaching. And she has screened over 250,000 resumes, conducted over 5,000 interviews across 3 continents. That's exhausting just saying. But she has taken that expertise she's to recruit, build, and evolve highly talented teams at startups, Fortune 500s, and mid-sized companies. Today, she's the founder of SuperCharge, where she shares career-boosting strategies that give clients a competitive edge to land their dream job, get promoted, and lead richer, happier, and more purposeful lives. So thank you so much for joining me. I know it's late over there. I've been a huge fan of yours, so I appreciate you coming on and spending your evening with me.
Oh, thank you so much, Virginia. It's an honor. I've been following your stuff for a while, so I'm excited. I think this is going to be a good conversation.
So you heard me just briefly spell out your background, but how did you come to starting your company? Most of us, I've said this before, most of us don't come out of school saying, well, I'm going to start my own career coaching company. How did it come about for you?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. I loved corporate life. I was one of those people that would look forward to getting up. Oh, it wasn't even getting up in the morning. It would be the night before. I'd, set up my clothes, get organized, clothes and shoes. Everything was ready, matching jewelry.
You didn't have dreams of being an entrepreneur your whole life?
No, not at all.
Me neither.
And I was that, I have to talk to you about your stuff sometime. So I was that person and I loved it, because you hear people, you hear corporate life getting a bad rap these days. And I was not that person. I never complained as such. So I loved it till I didn't. So that's the short version. Obviously, the different countries and we were chatting backstage just before we hit record. So there's obviously it's a squiggly, non-linear.
I see a little airplane moving around the globe with you. Really quickly. So I am from Uruguay, and I shared that in our earlier chat. Nobody has heard of Uruguay, much less gone there. So the fact that she worked there just really intrigued me, much less jumping to Chile and France and growing, being from India. So walk me through it.
So born and brought up in New Delhi. I'm 100% Indian. And I always wanted to be in HR. That was my dream. So I started working in HR and I got a big break at GE Capital. And I was, doing really well there. And then got married. And the person I got married to had a brilliant opportunity to head marketing for his company in Latin America. And that meant leaving my career behind and leaving that promotion, which I had just got like literally 2 months before, to follow him, which is what sometimes as a good spouse, I'm not going to say good wife because he actually returned the favor and I'm going to get to that. But that's what you do, right? You support each other.
Yeah.
So I followed him. So Uruguay was the first country we were in. And then we were in Chile, actually, in Santiago, for a couple of years after Uruguay. So Uruguay was a very interesting experience for someone who's newly married. It's Montevideo. It's very pretty and all that, but it's very quiet, right?
And no, it's not a hopping city.
It's the perfect place if you have 2 kids and a dog.
That's exactly right. Not as a newlywed.
So,
Wrong
which
place.
But work wise, I struggled because I wanted to start working again, and it was a very specific structure there in terms of HR. If you wanted to be in HR, they say in Spanish you need to be a psicóloga, so you need to be a psychologist. And I was like, oh, okay.
No, it's funny. My cousin's wife, she's a psychologist, and that's how she got broke into HR, which I thought was crazy, but.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I happen to study sociology, but actually I don't use any of that stuff when it comes to HR work. So the only thing I could do, Virginia, over there was teach English to professionals. So I was teaching English to Spanish-speaking executives at big companies. And I would be that English instructor who'd go into their company and have lessons with them on how to get better at English so that they could get promoted and leave and live in Miami.
That's right.
So I was like, I never thought I'd be doing this. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't like a permanent thing.
No, it's not your calling.
It wasn't my calling, but I did enjoy it. And I was like, this is fun. And I remember I will never, ever take English for granted ever again. When you have to teach a language, you realize, oh boy, it is full of exceptions. This is not a language which likes to follow rules. It's basically all
which
over
is
the
why
place.
I love it, because you can throw out the rules, but I'm sure learning it from scratch. Although
totally.
I don't know how. Well, you're obviously multilingual though, so.
I do like languages, and so then moved to Chile because his company because of an acquisition, and which was much bigger. Santiago's a bigger city, and I did the same thing. So what I did in Uruguay was teach English, learn Spanish very, very quickly because I wanted to integrate as quickly as possible so that I could start working again.
Yeah.
And I had time suddenly after 4-5 years at GE. It was like, okay, I am actually home by 4 p.m. Now what do I do? So I started volunteering a lot. I was very heavy in the volunteer scene. And I did the same thing in Chile in the first few months. So teach English, learn Spanish, and volunteer. So by about the 1 year, 3-month mark, I was completely fluent in Spanish. And then I got a great opportunity, which is a different story in itself. And this is the early days of LinkedIn. This is, I had just put my profile in there. And it was early 2006. And I treated it like a dumping ground, and I looked on LinkedIn because the search functionality was quite, obviously it was in its infancy, and
I did beat me. I didn't get on there until 2008.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, let's figure this out. It was so new, and I was like, who is living in Santiago? And who used to be in Uruguay before. Or I think you could do a search by nationality. I don't remember, but I do remember I found this one guy, and my husband said, meet him. So I said, okay, just for careers, because he was doing really well. So I sent him a message, and he said, I'm happy to meet you. So I had lunch with him, and my husband said, hey, why don't I come along? And he brought his wife along. So that was it. Never thought about it again until a few months later. I got a call from PwC, and they were looking for someone, and they wanted to meet me. So I met them, and it turned out that guy's wife, her dad was a partner at PwC. So that little,
isn't that crazy?
It is so crazy. I can't tell you, because people use the word life-changing. That changed my life, because when I was working at PwC, I was this exotic Asian person, a brown ethnicity in this completely different office. I was one of the few people, or I think I was the only one who spoke fluent English. And it was 100% Spanish-speaking environment. So this gave me so much confidence, because when I was applying to business schools around the world, and I was applying to the top 3, top 4 schools, which are so competitive, right? But just by doing this, I became what is I'm putting air quotes, international. I was never international before that. So the power of just going out, complete strangers. And I didn't have an agenda when I met him. It was like, maybe I can help him.
Yeah.
I just remember being totally blank. So that was Uruguay and Chile. And that was great fun. In Chile, I was at PwC doing all sorts of consulting projects, HR related, process improvement. And it was so challenging, Virginia, because it was all in, not only was it in Spanish, but the content was new to me. Like, I don't know what project management is. I don't know that you have to do PMP or, and all of this in another language was completely insane.
It's one thing to be fluent, to be able to order at restaurants and things like that, but to then conduct the professional meetings. Language is a whole different
business, totally different business meetings and day-to-day friendships in the language. The good thing is when nobody speaks your language, Virginia, I find that you improve and you go completely like off the charts.
Immersion is the best way to learn.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's the story. And then time was ticking, and I wanted to do an MBA. And then I was applying to business schools, and I got accepted at INSEAD, which is a brilliant school, and it was my dream school. So this time, the husband returned the favor and he followed me to France, which is where the program was. And in between, by the way, took a 4-month break, had a baby. So this was a beautiful but very crazy period.
Yes.
I mean, I just told you before he's 12. So this is 2008. I start the program. He's 4 months old. I'm still feeding him. I don't know what I was thinking, Virginia. I think I was a little like, I think I was nuts, but I just decided I was going to do it, and it was done. It was a quick program. You get in, you know very well what you want to do when you get out. You don't have 2 years like in a business school in the US to explore. You know very well, okay, when I finish, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. And that was my intention.
That. Okay.
So, and then, came to Belgium right after. And I worked at 3 different companies here. They went through different restructuring. I left. My positions were, made redundant. So it was fine. I learned a lot. I enjoyed some of the companies, some of them less so. But that's always the case, right? And you learn from all kinds of experiences. So different. Telecom, food, mining, and chemicals. Totally different. And all in HR. And many times it was, by the way, I forgot to say this. Many times it was in French because that's the lingua franca in many companies. So, so I learned it quickly, and the Spanish definitely helped. And I had to even let go. I had to let people go in French. So that's not only knowing the language, but the empathy.
The empathy, yeah.
Oh, that's a hard one. So everything was fine, and I was just losing that spark at some point. I don't want to make it sound like one of those pity party stories, but I remember this one particular day, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I had to let a lot of people go, and I didn't necessarily agree with some decisions that were made. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I doing? I go in the morning. I come back late at night. The nanny is putting the kids to bed. I don't see them much. Mm-hmm. But if I loved my job, it would be worth it. Yeah. I wouldn't feel bad. But if you're not even convinced you're doing what feels right to you, then what's going on? So I quit. It's the first time in my life I quit voluntarily, not because I was moving continents or because the company had decided because of cost restructuring and all that. But this was the first time in my life. On my terms, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And that was difficult, Virginia, because I thought that's it. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z later. I'm going to do interim HR management. I wasn't getting calls. I met a lot of people. Everybody said, you're so interesting. It's, you're so exotic. I was like, okay, where are the jobs?
Yes.
Where are the jobs? No, there weren't any. So that was a difficult year. This is 2018. And then I decided, okay, I'm not finding any jobs. So I'm just going to create one. And I have no idea how it's going to look, but I do know I want to help people. And I do know that the thing I can do and help, because I did in the meantime a ton of pro bono, coaching and consulting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to figure this out, but I don't know what to do. But I think I can start making videos on YouTube about how to do CVs, how to do interviews, very detailed, step by step, very practical, because that stuff I know and I like it. So that's what I started doing. And, it was very slow, very discouraging. Nothing really happened with it. It gave confidence for sure, because I don't like being in front of the camera. So that was really good. And I taught myself video editing, all of that stuff, learned it on YouTube. I love YouTube for lots of stuff, everything, even like, I'll edit my own podcast. I'm completely okay with it, but it's all thanks to YouTube. But, you love it, but then you're like, okay, but what do I want to do? So something changed when I took the same content and I came back to LinkedIn. Hello.
You brought your YouTube to LinkedIn.
Yeah. And I'd left LinkedIn. I had a coach at that time, and she said, you need to be doing more stuff on LinkedIn. And I had so much fear of being on LinkedIn. I don't know why. I thought that the world is going to be judgmental. And she said, you got to get over yourself. And she helped me and said, this is not a nice headline. You've got to change the headline. And all of that stuff. And I started putting content on. And then people started reaching out. They said, I read this article. Yeah, I read this article, or I watched this video. Can we talk? And when your confidence has taken such a beating,
like our clients,
you don't believe it. It's a little numb. Like, you want to talk to me? And they're like, yeah. So, and from there on, it's been unstoppable.
Well, so you figured out where your people were, because the job seekers that you were working with probably weren't hanging out on YouTube.
That's it. And that was it was a stubborn mistake, let's call it that, because I'd heard this from people who looked really knowledgeable, and I was like, no. But then I realized, yeah, they're right, because YouTube is a bit more entertainment, and the serious job seekers are all hanging out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. That is such a fascinating story. And I love how it came full circle back to LinkedIn, where it sort of took off, right?
Absolutely. I'm sorry it was a bit long-winded.
No, that's so, and I think job seekers can relate to what you've gone through, because so many of them, have had their jobs eliminated for whatever reason, and they don't know how to get started.
Oh yeah.
And how to use a platform for what. LinkedIn has a lot of power that a lot of people don't realize. And you have two different examples of one using content and one making a connection, someone that turned into a job that you never expected.
Absolutely. And not just that, but a completely cold connection. And no, I know exactly what they're going through, because I've lost my job, because before GE I had a little stint as well. And that was the .com bubble when it burst, and we lost our funding. So I've lost my job actually 3 times, and it's been such a roller coaster. So it's like, that's really important what you just said, because there's so much noise. There's so many people who are giving advice. It's important to listen to people who are like, know what they're talking about, because
they've been there.
They've been there. It's in some way or the other. They've been there, and they've learned. It's not just that they've been there, but they've learned, because I've made so many mistakes.
Well, I love that. And I love that you're willing to share them, because that's authentic. So you work with all sorts of different job seekers, and you were a job seeker yourself. Are there a couple of challenges that you see people that are, facing, that they're testing the job search waters, either because they need a new job or because they're looking to make a career change, like what you went through?
Yeah. So the biggest one, which is obviously the elephant in the room, because we're recording this in 2020, is definitely COVID. I think that COVID is it's 2 things for me. It's a real challenge, but it's also a fake challenge. And when I say fake, I mean it's sometimes used as an excuse for inaction. And I'm calling it out when I see it with my clients or somebody who read a post and yes, but.
And we were just talking about how our kids use it as an excuse too with their schoolwork.
But adults are not that different, right? Because it's like when you write something and you're trying to be positive and you're trying to be like, okay, this is what you do. And this happened a few days ago. There was an article and somebody wrote, this won't work in my country because of the culture and I was like, I was so angry and I wrote something back And later I showed it to my husband and he was like, what's wrong with you? Like, you sound so immature. But I was like, okay, I was trying to come from a good place, but it came out all wrong. And so the thing is, it can be used as an excuse as well. This won't work here. So I'm very mindful of it. The biggest thing when it comes to anything new, any change, the biggest thing is our lizard brain, right? And that's fear. So the fear, which is, I'm not talking like, oh, I'm a little scared. I'm talking paralyzing fear.
Yeah.
And something that I've experienced with very, very deeply. So that getting over yourself, that part is I think the biggest challenge that
and fear comes out in so many different ways. For some people, it's analysis paralysis. Other people get very negative, like what you saw, saying, well, this isn't going to work for this thing, or this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But I think fear is that underlying emotion that's driving that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's at the foundation of everything. So it's not one of those things which is trendy. It's in 2020 and it'll go away. I think pandemic or no pandemic, any change, we're moving houses.
Change is scary.
Change is scary. And there's so many examples of change that goes well, versus change that goes terribly wrong. So it's all about how we respond to that.
I agree. I don't think anyone's ever said that before. That you're right. That's the common challenge, and the different manifestations exist, but that is the underlying emotion.
Yeah.
Is there something that you find that clients don't expect when they start job hunting, or that just really catches them off guard? Because I work with a lot of people that haven't needed a job search for years.
Yes. And people who haven't needed a job search for years are typically surprised by the humble pie they have to eat, which is all about, hey, I thought it would be done by now.
It takes longer than they expected.
Expectations. I thought by September, the kids would have started school. So I thought I'd have a routine by now. So it's either that or the complete lack of empathy. And that's funny because it's so hypocritical. It's the complete lack of empathy they see when they're on the other side. And when I ask them, but because my clients, at least my paying clients, are relatively senior, so they're surprised when they get ghosted or feedback takes longer. And then I questioned them. We're like, yeah, when you were on the other side,
when you were a hiring manager,
when you were a hiring manager, be completely honest with me. Did you not do that? Did you or did you not? And it would be like, no, okay, this one time. Yeah, that one time is that one time that you're going through right now. Now you know what it feels like.
Well, I think the fact that you were on the other side probably gives you some insight that a lot of times people don't have it because they haven't been in HR. They don't, even though they were a hiring manager, they didn't know how things were working.
Yeah.
The inner workings of it.
Yeah, and related to that, also surprised a little bit that there needs to be a proper strategy, and not like I'm going to wing it, but let's practice together. And I have clients who are like, "Hey, I have an interview tomorrow. Hey, do you want to practice?" No, I'm going to be fine. And then I saw mistakes being made, and I said, "Listen, I'm sure you're really, really good at it, but it's been 12 years.
Yeah,
since
you might need some.
We might need to do some brushing up together. So that's all of that coming together. It's like, okay, a new dose of humility.
No,
that's what
I agree.
Surprised.
I agree. But that lack of that lack of a plan, I see that all the time. I just don't think people realize that this is a process. Which I think, if they don't realize it's a process, they don't realize that there needs to be a plan in place. So what advice do you have for that person that knows that they want to make a career pivot? They don't just want any old job. They want to make some sort of a change. How should they get started?
Yeah. I think related to the first point, because I was talking to someone today on a LinkedIn Live, and she does lots of meditation and mindset stuff. And she invited me and she said, let's talk about mindset stuff for job seekers. And I was sharing this. 80%, and by the way, this is completely a made up statistic from my own experience. It could be
this is anecdotal.
Totally anecdotal,
okay.
and it could be way off, but this is a feeling. I think 80% of the entire job search, career search process is mindset. And I think the 20% is the rules of the game. You need to know your LinkedIn, your resume, your interviewing, your networking, all of the good stuff. But I feel like, it's like the pyramid, and it's like the mindset stuff is the foundation, and it takes up the most amount of time, where I think people are very quick to skip this part. And no, I just need the resume part. Can you help me? So there's moving parts, right? There's parts of the puzzle, and they all come together. So the first piece I have is, when it comes to the mindset part, is not to have too much pressure on yourself. So, which means, and by the way, this comes from my own experience, because I took a break when I lost my job at one point, and I had another kid, and I knew that I wanted to get back at a very senior level again. But not all companies recognize that. And they sometimes feel, but you've been away for 2.5 years. So I was very lucky. I was able to get to a director position after a break of 2.5 years. But after that, it felt like I had taken a step back when I moved to the next role. So it was director to senior manager. It doesn't matter. But the ego doesn't tell you that. The ego is not your friend. So the piece of advice I have here is treat the next step, like the next position you have, like a stepping stone, and almost like a springboard, to something that you will probably be even better at. But the next role doesn't have to be the one.
It doesn't have to be the forever. No, I think
not forever. And the one, I don't even know what the one looks like, because there's this thing about expectations and reality, and everybody knows it looks so, like the honeymoon period, everything's great. And then you're like, oh gosh, what is this? We fell in love, and then this person leaves wet towels on the floor and makes noises.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the first thing, is treat it like a stepping stone or a springboard to something which, will be even better, and not to have so much pressure. And the second one, which is again related to mindset, is this line that I read in a book, and I love it. It's by this woman who lives in New Jersey, who's from New Jersey. Her name is Marie Forleo, and I'm a big fan of hers. She wrote a book called Everything is Figure Outable. And Virginia, it is such a simple, practical book on how to figure things out.
Everything is figure outable.
Her mom made that word. So everything is figure outable. There's a solution to every problem. And she says, when you're a little bit confused and it feels like there's this fog and you're driving, but it's not very clear. She says, clarity comes from engagement, not from thought. So it's like you got to take action, and thinking is overrated. So what is this?
That analysis paralysis thing, right?
Yeah, it is very overrated. It completely paralyzes us. So it's like, okay, what does that mean? So I'm at the edge of this. And by the way, this is a true story, because I don't like cold water. So I'm at the edge of the swimming pool, and everyone's like, come in, it's great. The water's lovely. And I'm like dipping my toes. No way. And I'm thinking really hard. And I'm sitting there for an hour. I'm cold. Then somebody says, just do it. And you go in. And then you say the same thing to the next person. Come in, the water's
not so bad.
It's not so bad. So, I wouldn't have, and then you're moving, you're in action, and then it's not so cold. So it's the same thing. You're like, okay, I've been a senior finance professional for a long time, but I'm now really, really passionate about helping other finance professionals. And I think I could do a really good job with their marketing. But who's going to hire me in marketing? I've never done it before. Okay, what do you need to do? Maybe volunteer somewhere or shadow somebody. No, I can't do that. That looks really junior. And what are people going to say? Lots of thinking. So instead of thinking, I volunteer.
And listening to your ego.
listening to your ego, which we said is not your friend. So whether it's volunteering or shadowing somebody or creating content from whatever experiences that you're having, and you're like, I learned this today, I applied it, this works, this doesn't work. Finance professional, and you use the hashtags, all of the stuff that you know is going to help you to get noticed. So it's like, something is happening with taking action. Something's happening, and I'm getting the message. There's response, and my brain is telling me, hey, you're actually good at this. Which doesn't happen if I just think about it.
If you just think about it, you don't have anything rewarding that feeling.
No, not at all. And I'm sure you've seen this I have seen this with friends, and they're like working on this project, and I'm like, oh yeah, just a few more tweaks and it'll be ready for launch. I've seen them doing it for 18 months.
Yeah. No, that's death by wordsmithing. That's what I call that.
No, launch already.
Yeah. So I've always felt like making a giant career leap is sometimes, for a lot of people, it's too ambitious, but think about that micro pivot, which I guess is sort of like what you were saying as a stepping stone. I'm just thinking about my own career. I always wrote for a living. And I pivoted to starting to write. I wrote resumes for the industry that I knew, and then it grew into writing for all sorts of resumes. But I didn't set out to be a resume writer for anything and everybody. But I had to do that micro pivot and check my ego at the door, because yes, it was a pay cut, and yes, it was. It was very different from what I was doing before, but it wasn't the forever step. I didn't know what what the end goal was, but taking those sort of baby steps got me farther than if I had just said, I want to go do this. I would never have figured out. I could never leapfrog to that point.
Oh, that's a fantastic story. Yeah. And the thing that you said, I've always been good at writing. When you were a journalist as well, right? So it wasn't like you were thinking about, I don't know. It was like, okay, this interests me, I'm going to write about it, right? So that's probably how journalism happened.
But I remember thinking, I don't know HR. I'm not a recruiter. So how can I write about this? But I've been a hiring manager. So, but the ego could get in your way.
Ego is the thing, because when I was talking about these two things, the stepping stone and the clarity that comes from engagement, we're talking about having the student mindset again, which is not the ego's friend.
No, it's not.
The ego wants you to appear as the expert or the master.
That's right.
Not the student.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So we talked about advice for someone who's looking to make a career move or a pivot. What about someone who has been job hunting and it's going not well at all? How do you recommend they sort of regroup?
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to say I feel for you. On top of everything that's going on, this year has been such a dumpster fire. So please don't feel alone. Reach out to people. And this is going to sound a little bit self-serving, but think about hiring a coach. And there are good coaches out there. There are great coaches out there. There are maybe not so great coaches. Do your homework.
But there's coaches of all budgets, and there's job clubs where people, there are options.
So that's the second thing I was going to say. So reach out if you can. Hire a coach who, has worked with someone. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing the same thing and you're not seeing success, it's the Einstein definition of insanity.
Of insanity, yeah.
So if you can reach out, because then a certified coach can say, this is what's working, this is what's not, and this is so great about you, but you don't know that thing is great about you because you're too close to it. And they have this ability to show you a mirror, and it's like a coach friend of mine told me, he said, you can never tickle yourself. You won't laugh. Someone tickles you, it's funny. And it's the same ability with a coach. And I know that you had Dorothy Dalton on the show, and I was talking to her. I was talking to her yesterday, and she said it's so funny. She's like, I've seen clients who have no problem spending $500 on a pair of shoes. But when it comes to investing in themselves in the real sense, in the real sense, then there's hesitation. So think about personal growth, what it means. I've seen amazing work happen with not just my clients. So it's not about me, but with myself, because I've hired 3 coaches.
I have too.
And you know what they say, a coach needs a coach. So everyone who's successful out there has had a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first one. And the second is, of course, have a community, help people out. Don't think about, I need help. Give what you need. If you need help, give help. If you want respect, give respect. If you want love, you give love. It's so funny because it comes back to you 10 times over.
No, I love that. I love that. And you're right. Even coaches hire coaches because we might be good at one thing, but not the other. And yeah, I've never been afraid to outsource that because I know what I'm not good at. And if someone else can teach me, I'm all for it.
Yeah, that really helps with the self-awareness piece as well. And the last thing I want to say here is, if the first 2 the points that I made don't necessarily resonate, then the third one you could do is, okay, completely step back, try and be as objective as possible, which is not easy, but do that and see the past experiences. You've applied, you've met people, it didn't work out. Try and establish patterns and see why, and ask yourself these uncomfortable questions. If you don't want to have somebody else ask them, you ask yourself, and there's truth in there, and you know it. So figure that out and work it out so that you actually are improving and not regressing.
Being stagnant. No, agree. So I want to ask you this next question is a little bit of a pivot, but I come across it all the time where someone needs, they're looking to make a move and they have lots of skills that they've worked in sales, they've worked in service, they've worked in operations, and they say, I'm open to anything. How do you guide them when their next role really could be in any number of different directions?
Okay. This is a fabulous question, Virginia, and I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a very controversial answer.
All right. Love it.
We're in 2020. So the technology has always been there, but I think this is the year the world has woken up to it, finally. So if you're multi-passionate and multi-skilled, that's congratulations. I want to say congratulations. It means you're not, that one-hit wonder type of person that this is all I can do. And there's nothing wrong with that because many people crave that, but you want to do many things. I'm going to say 2 things which are going to contradict themselves, and I'll explain myself. So the first thing I'm going to say is the traditional thing, but I believe in it, but there's a big but. The riches are in the niches. That's the American thing, niche. The riches are in Francais, c'est la riche, la niche.
In the niche, but, I like it better in French. Okay.
Me too. So they say that you want to be known for something. But what if you are good at the marketing side of things, but you also like finance? That's fine. The narrower you are, the better it is. And the narrow doesn't have to be 1. It could be 2 or 3, but there you have to have some sort of stitching together, it's not haphazard.
They have to be complementary, I think.
They have to be complementary. And even if they're not, but there's a way you have worked it out that they're kind of stitched together and they're not looking haphazard. And the non-traditional part I'm going to say is then show this to the world. We are living in the gig economy. And the technology allows you to do that. If your company is okay with it and you're interviewing and you have this day job, but you have this side hustle going on the side and it has nothing to do with your day job, what is wrong with multiple streams of income? If anything, this year has told us, that might be the way to go and there's no need to be scared. So the fact that you're multi-passionate and multi-skilled, it means you've been given this God-given talent, whether you believe in God, spirit, universe, superpower, whatever it is, you've got it. And I think it's a waste to not put it to good use and help someone. Maybe you have a thing for comedy. Fine. I see people making funny videos on LinkedIn and it's related to their area of expertise, but they're like, yeah, but I love it. Or I, dance. It's all sorts of crazy stuff now. There's like people dancing on LinkedIn. It's not for everyone. Personally, it's not for me, but those people have found their calling. They're like, okay, I'm really good at, finance, back office, but I love singing. So, I know someone who does that on LinkedIn and he makes songs.
I want to see that. I follow a poet and he does a Tuesday and a Friday poem.
Ah, okay,
It makes me so happy.
This one I follow. His hashtag is back office bard.
I'm looking that up. Okay.
And he'll create songs. He has checked his ego at the door. And, I'm not saying he's the next Elvis Presley, but he's fulfilled, right?
And his company, I'm sure his company lets him do it.
Yeah,
I think having that conversation.
And life's too short. Life's too short. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So the mortality, which sounds very morbid, but that really is a motivating factor for me. And if you want to do stuff out there, just do it.
So you brought up, talking about the technology. I do feel like with social media, you can have gigs. I mean, you can have a business and if your people are on Instagram, you could talk all day long about it on there. Twitter has a different kind of a niche. Facebook's another one. So there's opportunities to do that. But I think I'm with you with when you are job hunting. I do think it's worthwhile to figure out how you can connect the dots, some of those complementary skills.
Yeah, it comes down to such excellent research that when you meet the people that you're going to be interviewing with, you're like, you know what they're looking for, and you have a side thing which may or which obviously only mention it if you think they're going to be interested. But I think these are things that can help your personal brand and help you to stand out because you're not like everyone else when you're multi-skilled and multi-passionate.
That's right. And like the guy who's singing, if he's singing about corporate life, that's sort of like that micro pivot. If you wanted to be a big singer at some point, but this is that pivot into I'm singing about stuff I know about.
Yeah, the stakes are so low. There's nothing to lose, and you can have a very introverted person, and they never have to leave their house. That's the best part because they have everything on their phone.
That's right.
Exactly.
Oh gosh. Well, I don't mean this question to be flippant, but I'd love to ask it. Is there something that just drives you crazy when it comes to job seekers? I mean, maybe you've already answered it with the not checking the ego at the door, but what is it that just makes you want to rip your hair out?
Most of it I relate with because I've been through some nutty behavior myself. So I have no judgment. But there is one thing I have judgment with, and that's this self-sabotage. And I particularly want to talk about gender here. There's a gender trap. And I'll give you an example. I was preparing, and this is when I was in HR. I had an internal candidate. So we were looking outside. It was a senior role, but I had an internal candidate who was so interested. So I told the hiring manager, you see the external people, but I think she's right for the job. So he met her. Everything was great. And he came back to me and he said, no way. And I said, are you kidding me? Like, she's perfect. He said, yeah, but, she talked about being of childbearing age and over communicating. And I'm going to take time off. Oh, it was overshared, but it was also, it was unnecessary. Why a man wouldn't do that, right?
No.
So there's this whole gender thing, particularly, and I'm not saying only women do it, but the self-sabotage happens a lot, and one has to be careful because on one hand you're selling yourself so much, and then on the other one it's like shooting yourself in the foot. So that I don't get, to be honest. And the second one is related to that kind of, and that's selling yourself short. Where, like I was saying, you don't see how awesome you are in the mirror. And, so give me an example of a time or, all those type of behavioral questions. It's like, some sort of example. There are no numbers in there. You didn't practice. You're just winging it. The stakes are so high.
I can't tell you how many people tell me, right? It's mostly women. I see two things with women. One is, oh, I was just lucky. I was just at the right place at the right time. They sort of belittle their value because yes, luck does happen, but if you stink, you can't make the luck work for you.
No,
And then also I see with where a woman will see a job posting, and if they don't meet 95% of the job postings, will say, I can't do this. Where men say, this is close enough to this, I can go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And the third thing that I think drives me a little bit nuts, and this is not clients, but this is people on LinkedIn, and maybe this is me, Virginia, but those posts. Hi everyone, I'm looking for a job, and I'm looking for nothing. There are no specifics in there. I've just been laid off. I'm looking for a job. If anybody knows anyone,
let me know.
Oh, come on! I'm out there. I'm not judging, but you want to do something called targeted searches, right? And I think if you're going to do this mass appeal thing, maybe you'll do it once, but no more. And I saw today somebody had done that, and then they shared their own post a few days later. I didn't hear back from anyone. Can you please help? And I'm like, God, dude, I'm going to pull you out. There's a better way to do it. You reach out to people, but even reaching out, there's a science and an art. But this mass thing, it drives me crazy because, I mean, when you do that and you see zero engagement, can you imagine what it does to your self-esteem?
Oh my gosh, for your ego.
Yeah,
no, you're right. You're right.
So that made me.
I share your frustration with that. I get people will put it on your comments, help me get a job. Which is it's not targeted.
No.
So this next question I want to ask you about has been in the news quite a bit, but it's always been an issue. There's lots of talk about discrimination, as a barrier to entry with hiring. I'm sure you saw it on the HR side. There's, age, ethnicity, gender, racism, sexism, all of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, especially given that you've been on the other side of things. And how do you help clients navigate that?
Yeah. I think there's always been discrimination, and I think there always will be discrimination. As long as we have human beings on the other side as hiring managers, the biases are going to be there. And I know discrimination
part of the human condition.
It is, and I know discrimination and bias is not the same thing, but at the end of the day, because I attended a webinar 2 days ago, and they talked about biases, and these are so unconscious. There's these shortcuts that are sent to the brain. So it's like, you're sitting in the plane, you sit down, there's a seat next to you, and there's people walking. Okay, if you remember sitting in a plane, at least I think I have this foggy memory. And you're sitting and you're alone, and then these people are passing by, and the seat next to you is empty, and there's this person, and you're like, oh my God, I hope he's not sitting next to me. You don't mean to be a mean person. It's just these shortcuts, and there's this lizard brain just protecting us. So as long as we're going to have that, I don't want to, I know it's a bit unconventional, but I don't think I can do anything about it, both as a job seeker and both as a hiring manager. I can be made aware of it. And I don't think I can control it because it's unconscious. So I am a big believer in Roman Stoicism, which is all about focus on what you can control and be happy with it. And what I can control as a job seeker, and this is what I tell my clients, lead with what you can do for them. Make it about them. This is all about them. This is not your show. And I even, make sure that they are the ones asking from the very beginning, as almost, in the last round of interviews, I'm like, you do 20% talking, make them talk 80% of the time. And it's been proven. Again, it's only anecdotal, but when you talk a lot, like right now I'm talking to you and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm actually loving what a great listener you are, right? And the human condition is like, this is a really nice person. And she's looking so interested. And she's interested in me and what I think. So the biases will be there. But if I can just focus on what I can control, which is, this is the value I bring, show it to them. Don't just talk, show it to them. Bring something physical with you. Impress their pants off. You did a deal. Show them on in the news what happened. oh, there was a merger and you were responsible. It's public. Talk about it. Physical things. I did that when I was in business school. And there's these little things you can do to stand out. And I think when it's more about the value you bring and how awesome you are, and they're thinking, oh gosh, this is what I want them to think when they see my clients. Oh gosh, he is an answer to my prayers. I wonder when he can start. And when they see that, I think they see beyond the physical, how
I
tall
agree,
he is.
and because when you show them what you can do for them, I think our brains are wired to say, oh, me, this can help me. And it overrides the unconscious bias switch.
No, it is. And again, everything I'm saying is coming after like 20 years of experience and mistakes. That's what I call mistakes. I call them experience. And lessons. So it's not easy. None of this is easy. This requires daily practice. None of this is overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. But when you're leading with what you can do for them, it's issue focused. And at the same time, wow, congenial, nice person. Smiles a lot, and if there's no COVID, oh, great handshake. All of the nonverbal
That's
stuff.
right.
Because we know the nonverbal stuff is 70-80%. The verbal is remaining 10-20%. So if you know all of those rules, you're not putting up a charade. It's not fake. But at the same time, they need the likability, the congeniality factor. So if you can do that and you look like you know what you're talking about, wow.
Better. But you're right. That's within your control because you don't know who's got what unconscious bias.
Yes. And I have always seen that. And, like I mentioned, I wasn't able to find work. I don't know if I got rejected because of the way I look. It's possible. In a predominantly white country, I'm brown. Was that a factor? I have no clue. And frankly, I don't have the space in my brain or energy to go back and analyze, because there's nothing I can do about it. And I always thought later, oh, those guys rejected me. I really wanted to go there, but I think deep down it was a blessing in disguise.
I love that. And I never heard the term Roman Stoicism before. I'm going to use that. So let's say someone comes to you when we get to go to a dinner party when COVID is over and says, okay, I'm going to start job searching. What are a couple things that I absolutely need to have to get started?
Great question.
Answer?
So I have a slightly long answer, Virginia, because Hannah Morgan,
love her.
another brilliant coach I absolutely love. She had crowdsourced this on LinkedIn last week.
The Gizmos and Gadgets.
Yeah. Yes. And she wrote a fabulous article in it, and I absolutely loved it. And I shared 10 things. I'm going to go through those 10 things because
her article was job search productivity tools, right?
Exactly. Productivity tools. And I kind of went a little bit beyond. So
I
the
shared
first
a couple.
thing. Yeah, you did.
One or two.
Oh, and she's amazing because there were so many people and she put it all together beautifully. Fantastic article. And I think I retweeted it all over the place. So there's 10 things and I think they're meant for a very, very low budget, which is what I love. Because when you're job searching, which is when you're job searching, you have to watch out, right? So the first thing is, because we're recording this in December 2020, so it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere. I think that the ring light, that round light, it's $20. You put this in front of your laptop when you're interviewing, world of a difference, because you're like dark and, almost invisible to completely, studio lighting.
Oh, so it makes your skin look clearer.
Oh my God, it's so flattering.
That's why models use it. Yep.
Oh my gosh, all these influencers with their, Instagram. So the second one is the LAN cable. So I don't use Wi-Fi anymore because I've been burnt so many times when I go live. And it's again $20 because then you don't depend on poor Wi-Fi. The third thing is a very easy one. LinkedIn search is very powerful, the free version of LinkedIn, not the premium version. So you're looking at somebody in a target company, you can see their previous employer, you can see location. You can see how many years of experience. Please take advantage of it. The fourth is Google Alerts, which we all know it's there, it's free. But then stalk those companies.
You can do a bunch. Yeah, you don't have to just do one Google alert. You can do a bunch.
Exactly. It's you don't have to be loyal to one company. And obviously, lots of people said this in her article. Email address search tools like MailScoop and Hunter.io. If you want somebody's email address,
MailScoop. I have tried to stump it many, many times and I can't.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And then a decent webcam, right? People are like into this fancy stuff. My webcam is $26 and it has some sort of noise cancellation, which is great because it's so funny. When I go live on LinkedIn, sometimes the next door neighbors decide to put on their leaf blower. Really loud, and I'm apologizing, and people in the comments are like, we don't hear anything. Oh, thank God, because it's so loud in my ears. So the webcam is doesn't even have to be the best quality. Then a simple, people go like, oh, Trello board and this, that. If you can do that, that's fabulous. But a simple Google or Excel sheet to track who did you reach out to? Yeah, simple spreadsheet. Who did you reach out to? When did you do it? What was the outcome? Dates, because after a while, you're going to lose track. And then color coded if you are a little bit obsessed to see who needs to get back. The eighth is Zoom, which I don't know if people realize it's free for one-on-one conversations. You don't have to pay.
You don't have a limit.
So it's fabulous. And the next one is I love this. This has been a game changer for me. So this is a laptop stand, Virginia, and I posted a video on it because people's eye contact matters, particularly when you're on virtual calls. You need to look at the lens when you're talking, not at the person, because then it's the person.
Well,
the perception.
It makes you look like you have a double chin. So if you stare with your eyes, Alex Freund taught me that if your eyes are at the camera level, your neck is up, and it is more flattering.
And all the good stuff that the ring light is doing for your flattering skin is completely undone
if you look down.
With a non-existent double chin, which has suddenly appeared out of nowhere. So this laptop stand, metallic or bamboo, you can check it out on Amazon. It's $18. And the last one is very unconventional, and that's a bottle of perfume or cologne next to your laptop. Yeah.
So you can just smell, because I have candle. I have a candle that I breathe in sometimes.
Yeah. And I like it on my wrist. So if there's an important meeting and they obviously can't smell it. So my clients laughed when I said this, and I was like, just try it. And it was like, actually it worked. Obviously I was prepared.
Really?
I was over prepared, but it increased the vibration. Something happened. And when it's face to face, obviously, keep something in the bag or in the car, because, if you're one of those people that gets really nervous that, your sweat glands are working overtime, that's always a handy thing, to have. But with remote, it's just, it just changes your mood.
That's interesting. I love that. And what perfume do you buy?
Whatever's sitting
whatever's there.
These days. Yeah, I'm not partial.
That's so funny. All right, so you have many balls up in there. You have your podcast, you have your business. What is on the horizon for you in 2021?
Okay, exciting. So the podcast, which you said, has just come out like a month ago, and I adore this part of the work I do. So I have big plans, for the podcast one day that it gets a bit more scale, gets heard by more people. The second is the one-on-one coaching. I adore that because you've seen that, Virginia. It's so exciting to be on this journey, and so rewarding, because you're almost like, I don't recognize you anymore, and they've done so much work on themselves. So that I love. And then the third one, which is in the works, which is a project which I'm working on. I'm very, very excited about it. And it's about helping job seekers, particularly in low-income countries who are not able to reach, career coaches out there and get the help they need, or people on a very shoestring budget. That's something that I'm working for the last 3 months on, and I hope I can launch that in December itself. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. So I have included in your bio your LinkedIn and your website. Do you give a shout out as to tell folks what your podcast is, if that way they can learn about it?
Oh, thank you. Lovely. So my podcast is called How I Got Hired.
How I Got Hired.
And it's really, really focused on, well, it's not just job seekers, but job seekers are, in my heart every time I do a recording. Like, how can this help job seekers? So I interview interesting people from around the world, and we go back and listen to their stories on how, literally, how did they get hired for that dream job, and that dream job, changed the entire trajectory of their career. And then, how did you get hired for that promotion? Oh, and then you started your own company. Okay, how did you get hired by your first client? So those stories are what I hope brings lots of value to the listeners.
I don't know if it was your podcast or if it was on YouTube, but it was a guy who talked about how he got a private equity job, and I just loved him, and we connected on LinkedIn. I loved what he had to say.
Neil.
Yes.
Yeah. He's fabulous. Cool. He was on the podcast, and he has a fabulous YouTube video as well.
Yeah, no, that was very, very cool. Well, so thank you so much. I know it's late at night, so I'm going to let you go to sleep right now. But I love your advice. I love your mindset advice. I think that's so important. And that's the key to getting over fear, which is such a big driver of the angst that people go through with job search.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Well, take care and good night.
Take care. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's SKIM online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.